Good Shabbos, everybody. Hati Yashakoach to each and every one of you for trekking out in this weather and ensuring we have a beautiful minyan. Also, a Hati Yashakoach goes out to all those who made the effort to be last night at the joint service. Clearly, Shaare Zedek stood out as the dominant number, and it was beautiful to see, and to Al Khazan for an incredible Ma'ariv service last night. So, as I said last night, this coming Monday evening begins the holiday of Purim. Okay, I hope you're going to come and join us, be part of what's going to be a great festivities. But before we can get to Purim, we have today this particular Shabbat called Zachor. And this is the name that is given to the Shabbat that always precedes Purim. It is called Shabbat Zachor because in the Maftir reading, as I said before, we are commanded to Zachor. We are required to remember what Amalek did, as the Torah says, on your journey after you left Egypt. And we use this Shabbat to remember not only Amalek, but all those throughout history who have tried to eliminate the Jewish people. And especially and very sadly and tragically on this Shabbat, we also take a moment to remember Ilan Ganeles, an American citizen, and Hallel and Yagel Yaniv, who were shot and killed in separate terrorist incidents by Palestinian terrorists this last week. Yes. The seeds of Haman still live on today. And you certainly don't need me to go over the daily litany of anti-Semitic attacks, the anti-Semitic incidents which are occurring worldwide, including right here in Montreal. Most of you are not aware that last Shabbat there were men in ski masks holding knives who attempted to accost a young boy in the Westbury area. Fortunately, he was a little bit faster than they, and he was able to run before he was hurt. But what I want to stress today is this. I'm trying to work out why do we even have this specific commandment of Zachor to remember. Now, the traditional explanation is because Amalek broke the rules of warfare. What did he do? What did they do, Amalek, the Amalekites? They attacked the women and the children from the rear instead of attacking the warriors in the front. Very cowardly. They did so when the whole world was afraid of the God of Israel, and, of course, Moses and the children of Israel because of what happened in Egypt. But here's another reason. Purim is a uniquely Jewish holiday. Why? Because it involved a threat to Jews and Jews alone. Didn't threaten anybody else. Think about it. Anyone of any faith can find something to celebrate in all of our holidays. Rosh Hashanah is the creation of the world, time for forgiveness. Yom Kippur is atonement before God. Even the Ninevites repented when confronted by Jonah. Sukkot is a holiday for all people of the world. We pray for them. Chanukah is for anyone who wants to celebrate religious freedom. Passover is a holiday for freedom and liberation. Who wouldn't celebrate that? So every Jewish holiday, there is a connection between anybody of any faith that wants to celebrate it. They can find their place. Except for Purim. Shabbat Zachor. This is only for us. Only Jews are victims of antisemitism. I'll say it again. Only Jews are victims of antisemitism. And this is why this topic needs to be addressed to Jews. To remind us. It needs to be spoken about. It needs to be heard by you, by everybody. Because we know the anti-Semites are not going to listen anyway, so we're not addressing them. But if you listen and if you understand and if you learn about it and if you speak about it, then maybe you might be able to raise the volume on the need to fight anti-Semitism. And maybe that is why everyone, men and women alike, are required, are commanded to hear the Megillah. And they're required to hear this maftir. Because everyone is a potential victim of anti-Semitism. No one is spared. Not those in the desert who removed themselves from the camp, nor the Jews of Persia in Haman's time, and certainly not the Jews of Europe during Hitler's time, Shabbat of Zachor, and not even Jews living in Israel today. And know this, you can be sure of one thing. Anti-Semitism is not going to be fought and eradicated in a well-meaning kumbaya type get-togethers. Anti-Semitism is the oldest hatred. It stands alone and needs to be fought on its own terms, not as part of some intersectional social justice movement that wants nothing to do with us anyway. And our response? What we can and must do is the very same answer that has been offered throughout the centuries by the prophets, by the Talmud, by the classical and medieval commentators, and by modern historians. And that is to never forget the dangers of assimilation, to never forget our Jewish identity, and to never ignore the threat of anti-Semitism. Doesn't matter how small the comments are, or whether they were meant or they were not meant, you stamp it out, and to speak about it time and time again. We must insist on a zero-tolerance policy when it comes to anti-Semitism, whatever the source and whatever the method. Because today, in this multicultural, politically correct world that we live in, the only minority, the only ethnic, national, or religious group you can still insult and target and know that you'll get away with it are the Jews. And we must let our government officials at all levels know that we expect them. No, we don't expect them. We demand that they speak out against anti-Semitism. Enforce those laws that combat such hate and prosecute them to the fullest extent of the law, those who engage in this type of behavior. We must all hold our leaders accountable. All. And we must require all candidates for any office, whether national, provincial, federal, local, whatever you want to call them, their commitment to eradicate anti-Semitism in all our communities. And if they don't, if they're not prepared to commit to it, they shouldn't be elected. But as important as this is, there is also the danger in only seeing Zachor in this light. And that is because, while yes, we always have to, and yes, we always need to be on guard, there are far too many Jews whose only connection to Judaism is about being hated, being persecuted, being discriminated against, or being victimized. For far too many, Judaism is only about anti-Semitism. For far too many, our people feel the need to keep Judaism alive solely to spite the anti-Semite. And as important as it is, the problem with Zachor as it relates solely to anti-Semitism is that it ignores another equally important Zachor. And that, of course, is Zachor et Yom HaShabbat L'Kadsho. That of remembering the Shabbat. It ignores the joy in being Jewish. These people They mean well. They do. They really do. But they fail to see and therefore fail to communicate to their children the richness and the fullness in life that Judaism has to offer. Far too long, our emphasis has been on Zachor as a remembrance of all our past sorrows, and not enough on focusing and remembering the good, the positive, the joy that also exists in Judaism. And that is why the Zachor led the Midrash to teach us an important lesson. And that is that there are two significant uses of that word in the Torah. There is the one I've been talking about, Zachor et asher salacha Amalek, remembering Amalek. But here is also the other one, and the one that is in the Ten Commandments, just above the ark there. Zachor et Yom HaShabbat l'kadsho. Remember the Shabbat day to keep it holy. And as the Midrash says, one cannot compare the two commandments. You cannot compare the two Zachors. For remembering the Shabbat is a cup of sweet wine, but remembering what Amalek did is a cup of bitter vinegar. And yes, of course, we have an obligation and a solemn responsibility to fight against any forms of evil, particularly antisemitism, but we should also keep it in perspective. To remember that antisemitism is the cup of vinegar of our lives. But that cup is by no means the totality of being Jewish. If Judaism is all about looking for antisemitism or reaching to it, it's not Judaism that most people want to be a part of. It's not the Judaism that people really want to see survive and continue. It doesn't have anything for me. It is a Judaism which has lost any positive reasons for existence. And that is why it behooves us also to remember that Zachor has a positive meaning. It is a positive commandment to keep the Shabbat and keep the other mitzvot as well. And I want to conclude with two words of caution from the Megillah that we're going to read on Monday night and Tuesday, which are so prophetic for today's world. First, as Mordechai said to Esther, do you really think you'll be safe in the palace when Haman comes to get us? Do we think that we are truly safe because we are so ensconced in Canadian society and live safely in the palace of Canada? Current events are telling us no, we're not. This is no time for complacency. Remember Mordechai's warning. And then secondly, at the end of the Megillah, we are told that Mordechai was liked by the majority of the Jews. By the majority. Well, he just saved the Jewish people, and he's only liked by the majority of the Jews? That's what the Megillah says. Not all, or close to all, but a mere majority. It didn't matter what Mordechai did to save them. Well, don't we see this today as well? Jews continually siding with those who speak ill about the Jews and about Israel. They can't even defend their own people first. And now we have Jews, we have rabbis who won't even speak about it. Trust me, this gives cover to the anti-Semites to continue spouting their hate and their ignorance. After all, if a majority of Jews don't care, then why should anyone else? So let us resolve to come back here Monday evening and Tuesday morning to celebrate Purim, to once again claim victory over those who have and who continue to seek to destroy us and our way of life. To reaffirm our Jewish identity. To honor who we are and what we believe in, and to celebrate and acknowledge and affirm the orah v'simcha, the light and the joy, sason v'ikar, gladness and honor will forever survive, will forever endure, and will forever triumph over evil. And as God did for Mordechai and Esther, may he give us the strength to deal with the antisemitism in our midst with conviction and with courage, so that in the future, Shabbat Zachor is only about remembering the past and no longer about having to be present and remember what's going on in our community, future threats to our existence. Shabbat Shalom and Purim Sameach.